Thrills and spills around these unforgiving streets. It is race day. It is the start of the 2025 NTT INDYCAR Series, and we are live on Fox. Let's take a look now at the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg starting grid.
Scott McLaughlin, Christchurch, New Zealand.
I'm Colton Herta from Valencia, California.
Felix Rosenqvist, Värnamo, Sweden.
Marcus Armstrong, Christchurch, New Zealand.
I'm Christian Lundgaard from Vejle, Denmark.
I'm Scott Dixon, driver of the number 9 PNC Bank Honda from Auckland, New Zealand.
Marcus Ericsson, Kumla, Sweden.
Hello, I'm Alex Palou. I'm from Barcelona, Spain.
I'm Kyle Kirkwood from Jupiter, Florida.
Josef Newgarden, Nashville, Tennessee.
Nolan Siegel, Palo Alto, California.
Rinus VK, Hoofddorp, the Netherlands.
Will Power, Toowoomba, Queensland, Australia.
Devon DiFrancesco, Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, I'm Kevin Simpson from the Cayman Islands.
Louis Foster, Odium, England.
I'm David Malukas, grown up in Chicago, Illinois.
Robert Schwartzman, born in Israel, Tel Aviv.
Santino Ferrucci, Woodbury, Connecticut.
Alexander Rossi, Nevada City, California.
Graham Rahal, Columbus, Ohio.
Connor Daly from Noblesville, Indiana.
Pato Award, Monterrey, Mexico.
Christian Rasmussen, I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark.
I'm Jacob Abel from Louisville, Kentucky.
Stingray Rob, Hayat, Idaho.
I'm Callum Milo, I'm from Cambridge in the UK.
27 drivers, all with one goal today, to take victory on these streets as we prepare for the field to take the command.
It's time to give the command for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding. Please welcome your Grand Marshals, Zach Myers and Barry Kirsch from the band Shinedown.
Drivers, start your engines!
Well, guys, here we are. No more waiting around 100 laps. Stand between us and finding out who will win this opening race. There is A-Rod in the two-seater.
Oh.
Hey, Alex, it's Townsend Bell from the Fox booth. You got me?
Oh my God.
Alex, you spent your whole career in a batter's box. Describe what it feels like inside this box. How tight is it?
It's indescribable. Oh my God, I've never gone so fast anywhere.
You feel the G's?
Davey knows what he's doing. That's what he told me.
Well, welcome to IndyCar. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh,
we're getting ready to rumble.
Oh my God! Whoa!
I'm trying to see who's making more.
This is unbelievable. Oh my God.
Layrod, thanks for being here, bud. Hope you enjoy the rest of that lap.
I'm not gonna promise that. Oh! Oh my God! Wow! 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 Wow!
I feel like I need to be on the bleep button.
Well, let's take a look at the track preview sponsored by Honda now.
So here we go. We've talked about it off the top. 1.8 miles on this Honda track preview. Top speed of 175 miles an hour down into turn 1. But there's some fast corners too. 135 mile an hour minimum speed through turn 3. That was an action area in practice.
And even though it's tight and twisty, you can make passes. Turn 1, turn 4, great opportunities. Turn 9 is all about exit speed. You need a great run down there for the brake zone that you'll get into turn 10.
Guys, just how tricky is this track? Having had a few months out of action, having had a few months to get rusty, not just for the drivers, but for all the teams as well.
Well, it's difficult because in IndyCar, you race on 4 different types of circuits. Let's take a closer look at what defines an IndyCar and take a look at some dimensions thanks to our friends at Dallara. Every race car in this series is manufactured by Dallara, so you start with the same piece. It's up to the teams and drivers to optimize it. 76 inches wide, that's gonna matter when they go 3 or 4 wide wide on the start.
But it's all about power. That's what people want to know. This engine in the back of these Indy cars, 2.2-liter V6, making about 700 horsepower, an extra 50 when you get on that push-to-pass button, Townsend. Only 1,700 pounds. You add that together with that 700 horsepower, that's going to give you over 240 miles an hour capabilities when we're at tracks like the Speedway in Indianapolis.
And folks, on that Dallara cutaway car, you will have seen that the fuel capacity in these cars is just 18.5 liters. That means if you are new to IndyCar, that it is not just tire stops we have here, it is fuel stops as well.
And let's take a look at the Bosch race strategy. Couple of things here. Physical fatigue. First race of the season. These drivers have been in the gym, but it's not the same as being in the race car. Tire whisperer. It's all about tires here today. We've talked about the hards and the softs. You have to run one of each compound, and you've got to make sure you take care of them, and no concrete contact. So easy to do here.
We're going to tire you out today talking about tires. That's how important it is to winning strategy. And again, the rules on tires. Teams are allotted 5 sets of Firestone primaries, the harder compound, 5 sets of alternates, the softer compound per race weekend.
Jamie on pit lane.
Well, new father Scott McLaughlin captured the pole on Saturday and celebrated with his 4-month-old baby girl. But it wasn't easy getting to qualifying as he had a crash in practice and made his team work overtime. But he also told me winning here in 2022 from the pole was one of the best races of his life. He hopes to get back to victory lane today. Jack.
I'm at the number 7 of Christian Lundgaard. He was his first race for this McLaren IndyCar team. He was the fastest of their stable. He's going to be starting on the harder primary compound. He's going to go as long as he can. The team are going to look at how the soft tires are behaving, make an adjustment after that. Kevin?
Meyershank Racing has won one IndyCar race. It was the Indianapolis 500, Elio's 4th in 21. They've wanted more consistency. They've started off the season with a bang. Both of their cars on the second row. Felix Rosenqvist and Marcus Armstrong can win today.
Thank you guys for coming into this race. Big question marks over tire strategy. The softer tire, the green tire, could last 10 laps, could last 15, could last as little as 5. Right now, we just don't know. Only 11 drivers start on that primary tire as we get ready to roll to green here in St. Petersburg. The dawn of a new era for the NTT INDYCAR Series. We are delighted to welcome you here to Fox. Every race in one place here live on Fox as the Honda Civic Type R leads the field to green. They will bunch up 2 by 2 through the final sweepers and into the final corner. Scott McLaughlin, who has won this race from pole, will lead us to green. Around turn 14, 2 by 2 they go. The 27 cars of the 2025 NTT INDYCAR Series and on the streets of St. Petersburg, we are racing. Scott McLaughlin with a peerless performance from pole keeps that lead with absolutely no problems at all down into turn 1 with Colton Herta following through in second place.
2 Meyershank teammates there, Rosenqvist and Armstrong in the blue and white cars behind. They were side by side for a while, but it's single file as Colton Herta tries to catch back up after McLaughlin.
And that's a big one. That's Nolan Siegel in the back.
Massive contact for the number 6 full course caution. You see the 12 of Will Power, a championship contender.
Awesome.
Well, and that is race over for Siegel. That is rookie Louis Foster as well from the small town of Odium in the United Kingdom. And this guy's now pulled the entire track under a full course yellow. Pit lane is closed, but this could have huge permutations for those who have started on that softer tire and might want to get rid of it when that pit lane opens. For now, though,
devastating result to start the season for the 2-time champion Will Power. Nolan Siegel just in his second season as Tony Kanaan, the team principal for McLaren, looks on. And this is such a treacherous part of the track, James. It's blind for the cars that are trailing behind Siegel.
And you see it almost starts with Josef Newgarden, that blue car. There was a bit of a gap there. He seemed a little slow out of turn 2, a queue behind him, and that accordion effect just got everybody bunched up. Maybe Siegel was a little bit slow. Power got into the back of him. Nothing Nolan did wrong there. Another car involved. Oh, that was Foster. Maybe Foster even got into the back of Power. We'll have to take a look at some onboards if we can to see where that all started.
It looked a little bit through turn 1 and 2 as though Scott Dixon was just a little offline, just a little slow. we're on board here with Palo. Oh no, we're on board. Sorry,
that's for Nolan Siegel.
That's for Siegel.
Yeah, you could hear it. He just got drop kicked there. Nothing he could do.
Yeah, let's see if we get a better look. We're on board here with Will Power, I believe. No, that's not Will Power. He got wide. That was Kiffin Simpson in the cha-ching car in front. Now we're on board with Will Power. Nolan Siegel in the blue and orange to his left.
So side by side through one. Up on the curb for him there. You see Foster to the inside. He's got to go wide in two.
Oh, it was Power.
Yeah, Nolan just had to check up a little bit. Guys, we saw incidents here with cars just going through by themselves in practice, several spins, contact from McLaughlin in practice, and now it has claimed 3 victims already on lap 1.
The 8th time in the 21-year history of this race that we've had a caution on lap 1. It has taken out a driver who was hopeful at the start of this weekend of the race victory. He is the driver who has taken more poles around this track than anyone in history. That man, Will Power, is out of the race after tagging Nolan Siegel, the young McLaren driver who had had such a promising weekend up to this point. Nothing that Nolan could have done about that. And I'm hearing pit lane, guys, is open. Is now the moment when those drivers on that soft alternate tire pull the pin and make the change.
If you thought the start was dramatic, wait till you see what happens here on pit lane. Still 24 cars in this field as Power and Nolan Siegel walk back from their car. Here's the PPG team of Josef Newgarden, Team Penske, getting ready. So everybody likely to come to pit lane, at least the cars that started on the soft tires, James. I think those on hards will probably stay out. We're about to find out who plays it how.
It's a mad rush to the pit lane. Colton Herta, he started on those softs. He was in P2. Top guy on him. He's coming in. Jack.
The number 2 crew of Josef Newgarden are set up and he's getting waved in. He's literally just about to pull into the box, putting on a set of the harder tire. I'm curious to see if they're going to make a wing adjustment. They did not, and he's off. Jamie.
Former winner Colton Herta did exactly the same thing. Took off the softer tires, put on the harder tires. Good stop.
And as they roll out now, Alex Palou just behind Scott Dixon. We are still under a full course caution, but the race already taking a major twist with the majority of the field coming in to get rid of those soft tires, which, as we've discovered this weekend, were only good for a few laps. An incredible start to the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg here on Fox.
and Will Power, their contract here. I mean, he wants to win championship. He wants to retire with Roger Dixon. He's not ready to go away. So two drivers, honestly, really got good run and a big year. Well, and two, for the rookie Louis Foster, I mean, this is back when you can see Scott Dixon. Yeah, you want to get it back there. Foster, I think he's pretty landed there. Good opportunity to have that ride, but you don't play with that ride, I don't think. And yeah, you're right, man. The first opportunity to get an IndyCar Series race, and this is the first thing we're going to go through 100 laps, and unfortunately that might have to do this report.
Welcome back to the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, where 15 cars have pitted to get rid of the soft tires, which we understand could last a maximum of 14 laps around this 1.8-mile circuit. As you look at the leaderboard on your left-hand side, your top 9 drivers started on the primary tire. Herta and everyone behind him have changed onto that tire. They are good for the regulations now. Everybody from P1 to P9 has to run a new set of the alternate softs for at least 2 laps at some point in this race. Jamie Little down in pit lane.
Talk about a thrill. Alex Rodriguez to the 2-seater. Your onboard audio was fantastic. How was that experience compared to anything you've done before, A-Rod?
Well, first of all, my heart is still beating out of my chest. I owe my life to the driver, Davey Hamilton. He's fantastic. He took great care of me. But I said about 10 Hail Marys, and I said, this is the most exciting, most nervous I've ever been in a sport. And by the way, I'll never underestimate how difficult it is, what these guys are doing. It's really incredible.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Glad you got a little thrill ride.
Thank you. My first, but won't be my last.
Yeah. Will?
Lovely stuff. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you to A-Rod. We could see him clinging on inside the cockpit there of the 2-seater. Guys, this race has suddenly been turned on its head. What was looking like a 3-stopper for the majority of the field, with all those guys starting on the soft, being able to get rid of them. Is this now a potential 2-stop for them, theoretically?
It's a 3-stopper, but from here, it's 2 more. They've got one out of the way. It's going to be much more of a fuel-save strategy for them, where the guys at the front, they've got to push, and try to open that gap. Hope there's not enough yellow to help them out, the guys on the alternate strategy.
Well, but McLaughlin is going to have to put on the softer tire at some point. If that's only good for 5 or 6 laps and he can't hang on, he will be stopping 3 times this race. So we'll just have to see how things play out. As 15 cars pitted for tires, 9 stayed on the racetrack.
So here's the fun thing for those 9 guys. Those guys gotta just go push now. And that's what racing drivers love to do. They don't love saving fuel. They don't love saving tires. They like pushing to the maximum. And all those drivers up front that started on those hards, that are still on those hards, that's what they get to do. Unleash these things and see how fast you can push an IndyCar around this track.
The 3 drivers out on lap 1. Will Power, your 2-time champion, a 9-time pole sitter around this circuit. Nolan Siegel starting his first full-time NTT INDYCAR Series season with McLaren, had a very promising start to the weekend. And Louis Foster, Indy Next champion, making his debut in the championship, racing for RLL. Disappointment for all 3 who had so wanted to get their seasons off to a promising start, but it's 3 cars out, 24 left in the field. Your top 9 remain on the primary tires that they started this race with. Everybody from Colton Herta in 10th backwards changed off the soft.
But the thing is, the way IndyCar racing is, this can still go any way. Well, it doesn't really matter yet. We still have so much racing to go. Yellow flags falling at the right or wrong time for one of those strategies, and it all goes out the window. So this is still all to play for. The drivers that did stay out, that might look right now like the advantage has gone the other way, you can't lose hope. You got to stay focused. You got to stay concentrated in this series, because it could go any way. You see the 1 to go. That's the green flag furled up, pointed up for the drivers. We will be green next time by. I mean, look at this. Alexander Rossi started in P20. All the way back in P20. He's up to P5. He could play an interesting strategy himself. Run a bunch of hards in a row. Throw on the reds for a few laps at the end. That's all you got to do is those 2 laps on each tire, and you're good to go.
And Will, you talked about the number of crashes in the stats historically here at St. Pete. The teams would have been studying that data obsessively for the last 6 months, trying to figure out, okay, what are the percentage chances that we would get this crash on the first lap? Some chose one way, some went the other. At the end, it's a gamble, but it's an educated gamble.
And there's everything's a gamble, right? You could have something that's 90% certain. That's still 10%. It might not go your way. So those drivers that started on the primes took a big risk. It's over 50% in the first 3 laps. We get a yellow here at St. Pete's. Nature of this place. But now we're coming to that restart. We had the initial start. Everybody was amped up to get the season going. They only got a few corners out of it.
Maybe a little too amped.
Maybe a little too amped.
Rosie up in second place. Felix Rosenqvist and the Meyer Shank, his teammate Marcus Armstrong behind him. A superbly brilliant start to the season for both of those. Looked strong in preseason testing, have looked strong all the way through this weekend. Rosie knows what it is to fight at the front of this field on this track. Loves a street track, does Rosenqvist. Will be gunning for McLaughlin on the restart as the drivers now start to push to take it through to the final corner and get this Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg restarted. Scott McLaughlin will take them back to green, pushes it now out of the final corner. Green, green, green is the call as they come down the start-finish stretch once again. Rosenqvist all over the back of McLaughlin, makes a move to the inside to have a look at turn 1, but McLaughlin has it covered.
He's got to be so late on the brakes, but you see 5th in line there. Alex Rossi closing the gap there, side by side. Colton Herta already trying to make some moves up from 10th, essentially leading on that alternate strategy.
McLaughlin looking a little squirrely there as he tries to find temperature again in his tires. And that's Santino Ferrucci locking up, almost getting into his teammate David Malukas. AJ Foyt Racing running well up there, 6th and 7th right now.
As we ride on board with Santino Ferrucci, a big year ahead for this young man, particularly as it comes to trying to get one up on his very highly regarded teammate who sits ahead of him on track at the moment. Is McLaughlin, who leads from Rosenqvist and Armstrong. Ferrucci back in P7, 3 seconds back. His teammate, as we said, just ahead of him. And if you were wondering who the team and who the driver behind him that Colton Herta was trying to pass, that's the new team in IndyCar this season, Prema Racing.
Check this out, Will. New in IndyCar this season, the heads-up display. You've got gear position and RPM over here. Top speed, almost 170 miles an hour. This little cool box tells you the direction of the approaching corner and the distance you are from it. And then all important, what's going on with the driver's feet. IndyCar and Fox bringing the toys. I love it.
A little bit of action up in front of Ferrucci here as he's just keeping an eye on what's happening in front of him. It's all about getting into a rhythm now. These street circuits, they evolve so much as the rubber goes down, as the race goes on, and the drivers have to keep learning to find the limits, push the limits. It's never the same for 2 laps in a row at a track like this. But out front, Scott McLaughlin opening now a nice little breathing room over Felix Rosenqvist. Felix's teammate Armstrong sitting there in 3rd. Top 5 unchanged.
Some talks coming into the race today, guys, that Chevrolet was maybe making a little bit more horsepower down the straightaways than the Honda, but in doing so, it doesn't come for free. You got to burn more fuel to make more power. So that's what I'm going to be watching over the course of the next 25 to 30 laps, is how do they do in terms of efficiency, as well as 2nd through, 10th looks pretty tight all the way back through the field.
Colton Herta has made it past Callum Ilott, so Herta up to P9 and well within the group of drivers who started this race on the primary tire.
Man, I love that camera shot. That is so impressive.
And you know how dicey it is to stay flat if you can on the throttle. Also, this kink on the back straightaway right here, wide open with all the downforce that these wings make. But boy, the G-forces approaching 4 lateral Gs in that corner.
And look at the body language of the car of Scott McLaughlin out there on track. As you said, hustling, wanting to get every single thing out of this car, every single bit of pace, try to pull away, make this strategy work for him as we get a replay here of Rinus VeeKay putting the move on Kyle Kirkwood in the Chili's Honda. A great move from Rinus VeeKay, and there's one thing we know about him is he going to keep it in? Kyle Kirkwood, I think, has just kept that position. We know VeeKay loves to get his elbows out and go racing around this place.
That looked like a hometown driver, a home state driver, Kyle Kirkwood, defending his turf, although Rinus VeeKay has spent time living in Florida too. 2 very talented young guns going at it. Let's head down to the pits. Jamie.
Louis Foster has been checked and released. I know you were just looking at a replay. The rookie, you've been waiting so long for your first start and it's over. What did you see?
Yeah, I think it's happened quite a lot here previously. Turn 3 tends to be a bit of a hot spot. I was just following the trainer cars. I got through cleanly turn 1. I don't know if we're going to get a replay here or not, but to me, it just seemed like everyone in front checked up. I checked up, and then I got driven into from behind. Again, I need to see a replay and see exactly what happened, but yeah, just a bit of a passenger. Shame, really. The 45 crew, they've done an amazing job so far. Here we go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so one of those things, I guess. But yeah, the 45 crew's done an amazing job so far. You know, it was a shame. We really wanted to finish this race and get a good result for the team and get some experience for myself. But these things happen, so it is what it is. I'm fine, so yeah, we'll go get him a barber.
Thanks, Louis.
Louis Foster, full-time racer, part-time TV director. Jump in the box with the guys and give them a hand.
Ah, it's so tough, so tough. I mean, you know what it's like, Townsend. Your very first IndyCar race, you spent your whole life trying to get to that point, get to that moment, have that opportunity. Louis did an incredible job to win the championship, and then he next last year, and to be out turn 3, lap 1, it's just gutting for a young driver.
When you're a young driver, you know you need laps, you need experience. That's what I took from Louis' interview there. The tone of his voice reveals what we all know. You have to build that knowledge base to be able to compete, even have a chance of breaking in the top 10 in this sport.
And this is a young guy who's bucked convention, bucked the normal trend of a British driver not to try and compete on the European ladder, to come out here to America, to make a name for himself. And I can tell you, he comes from the tiniest village in England that you could imagine. I know it well. I went to school at the same place as he did. Odium is about 10 houses. That's it. He comes from a very small little village in the United Kingdom, making his way all the way up to the very pinnacle of open wheel racing here in the United States, the NTT INDYCAR Series. Scott McLaughlin, your race leader, to the tune of 1.1 seconds over Felix Rosenquist and Marcus Armstrong. Welcome back to the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg on Fox, presented by Pods. Scott McLaughlin still your race leader, and as we said a little earlier, he and Felix Rosenqvist, all of those drivers who failed to pit, really needed to get their foot down, start to push. McLaughlin is pushing and has pulled out around a second on Rosenqvist, but Rosenqvist is keeping him honest, and the two of these drivers now starting to pull away from the rest of the field. We were under yellow at the start of this race. Jamie Little has another of the drivers caught up in that.
And Nolan Siegel making his first start at St. Pete. You make it 2 corners and your day is over. What'd you see, Nolan?
Yeah, I haven't seen a replay yet. Everyone checked up a little bit in 3, and then I got hit from behind, and here we go. I got hit from behind, and there's not a whole lot I can do, I don't think. I mean, day's done before it started. It sucks. I mean, yeah. It sucks. This group has worked so hard all off season. We've made so much progress. We've had a fast race car. In every session, we've been competitive on both tires, and it's like, we were all really excited for this, and I hate it for everyone on the 6 car. It's such a bummer to start the season this way when we were so excited about what we had this weekend. So we'll keep working, and we'll keep doing what we can do. I feel like we've executed really well this weekend, and I'm super, super proud of this group. So I think if we continue to do that, we'll have plenty of weekends where we're in a strong position, but sucks to not be able to get the result that we deserve.
Well,
thank you, Jamie. Yeah, you can hear the disappointment in his voice. It had been such a promising weekend.
He's absolutely right. He did everything that he needed to do so far, but that gives him confidence. He's got 16 more events this season, but it doesn't take away from the devastation to kick things off this way.
See on the pylon there, tire designations, the color and the compound P for the primaries. That's the harder, slightly slower over a lap, but hopefully lasts a little bit longer. And that's been the whole talk all weekend long, is just about how soft those soft tires are and how fast they fall off. And that's the tire that your leader, Scott McLaughlin, and the cars behind him still have to use at some point. All those drivers that pitted after that first lap yellow managed to get their laps on the softs out of the way, like this guy right here from Colton Herta. So let's hear a little bit about some of that tire degradation from the driver of the Gainbridge Honda.
Starting to get some deg on black. Copy that. Got another 20 laps to go, so we need to manage it.
And that's the challenge for the drivers. I mean, he's saying, I'm already feeling some degradation. That means the grip's going away, the balance is going away. And Rob Edwards coming back on the radio saying, yeah, cool story, bro. 20 laps to go, and you have to make this work. That's the strategy these guys are on.
That's like driving from here to Orlando. Like, that's a mission. There's some ways to go for Colton Herta to hang on to those tires. But what's going to be fascinating is when some of these cars have to go to that softer tire. I mean, talk about deg. They're going to be talking on their radio, screaming for help after about 2 or 3 laps based on what we've seen so far.
Colton Herta in the black and yellow Gainbridge Honda, of course, has already run those softer tires. All he needs to do is run the primary for the rest of the day.
And what you're really looking at on the side of your screen, the gaps to the leader there. You see Herta in 9th, 11.2 seconds to Scott McLaughlin. Scott's essentially a full pit stop behind Colton right now. You lose about 28 to 30 seconds to pit. So McLaughlin and the cars behind, they need to try to get all the way to 30 seconds ahead of this man, Colton Herta, to try to get back on a level playing field. So right now, even though he's running 9th, it's early days, and the advantage is very much in this driver's hands.
Absolutely.
Traditionally, on the primary tire, we've seen guys go about 30, maybe 31, 32 laps before their first stop. So we're about 2/3 of the way for the first stint of these drivers, currently leading the way, P1 down to P8. Kevin.
It's a great start for the season for AJ Foyt Racing, who last year finished in the top 10 in the championship for the first time since 2002 with Santino Ferrucci. And now David Malukas joins, and they're running 6th and 7th. But a year ago at this time, Malukas feared at 22 years old at the time his career might be over. An off-road cycling accident, broken wrist, it wasn't healing properly. He was released from his dream job at McLaren, got picked up, finished the season well, and now is at Foyt, which has a Penske affiliation, and David Malukas is starting off strong.
He's a talented young driver, is David Malukas. As you say, Kev, I mean, it was a tough 2024 for this kid, losing that ride before he ever got to do a single race for McLaren, throwing that lifeline for Meyer Shank, and did an amazing job. Young guy from Chicago area, did very well in the junior categories growing up. and he's getting it done right now for AJ Foyt Racing.
A lot of rumors about David Malukas in line to potentially take over the number 12 car on Team Penske at some point in the future, but right now doing everything that you would expect of a young driver that has the eye of one of the most successful teams in the sport. And for AJ Foyt Racing, well, they say share that technical partnership with Team Penske. What that means is everything Scott McLaughlin has on his race car, almost everything, is available to David Malukas. And it's not just the bits, it's the setup, it's the numbers, it's all of the seemingly infinite combinations of settings that you need to optimize your race car.
Penske and Foyt not the only two teams that have an association in this championship. Also, Ganassi with Meyer Shank. Right now, those Meyer Shank cars with that Ganassi partnership running 2, 3 on track.
I mean, they qualified 3 and 4, so that's not just because of the way the pit cycles worked out there with that yellow. They've had genuine pace all weekend long. Both drivers having a scary moment in turn 3 in practice, spinning without hitting anything, which is pretty impressive. But Rosenqvist, veteran of the series, ran with Ganassi, has run with Meyer Shank, ran with McLaren.
Biggest mover so far, Callum Eilert. I mean, started last, up there, having started on the primary tire, so a little bit circumstantial.
It's skewed a bit, but still, he's doing a good job. He's staying out of trouble.
Great story for this team. Prema, dominant in so many formulas around the world. The Italian team comes over, all new IndyCar chassis. They bought 5 of them. That's $4 or $5 million right out of the gate that they're spending. They've hired 2 young, aggressive drivers. Callum Eilert has some IndyCar experience, but took a year off, went and raced sports cars. What a great way to come back.
Look at some pace. I mean, he's pulling away from Josef Newgarden behind him, who's on the same tire.
This is Prema. Prema stands for Preparazione Macchina, which means preparing racing cars. This is one of their drivers, Robert Schwartzman, 2018 Formula 3 rookie champion. He's raced brilliantly in Formula 2 and hypercars as well. Callum Eilert, we know him from his history in the NTT INDYCAR Series, a very proficient driver, and this team is not messing about. They have won 40 titles, well, 80 combined, 40 driver, 40 team titles. That's 1 a year.
Are you fluent in Italian? Can I get that one more time, the team name?
Preparazione Macchina. Prema Racing. Wonderful to see them in this championship, currently running top 10. Welcome back to the NTT IndyCar Series on Fox, live from St. Petersburg. You are looking at a man who had such high hopes coming into this weekend, but having qualified in 23rd, the day appears to keep unraveling for Pato O'Ward, Jamie Little.
Well, you said it perfectly. His day just continues to get worse. On lap number 1, they discovered they had a puncture in those primary tires that he started on. So he had to pit. They went to the soft tire. Now they just came in. So they ran the majority on the soft tire. They just put those harder tires, those primaries, back on. And he's still back there right now in 24th.
And even worse than that, we heard that he was going to have to use another set of those softs, which aren't lasting all that long. I mean, he made them last, what, he made them last about 15 laps, 16 laps, and it's going to make for a long day for the 5-car and Pato.
Your Pato O'Ward, James, you know it's head down, go as fast as you can. Make sure you stay on this lap. Don't go a lap down, as Scott McLaughlin and the leaders, Rosenqvist and Armstrong, aren't that far behind at this point.
O'Ward then currently 24th and last, around 16 seconds behind Jacob Abel, the rookie in P23, and about to get caught by the race leader. Now, the rules here in IndyCar, folks, again, if you are new to this championship, you do not have to let the leader pass if you are about to be lapped. You can maintain your position. You can fight for your right to remain on the lead lap. Only once you have been passed by everybody and essentially about to go 2 laps down are you then shown a blue flag.
You know, T-Bow, I'm just looking at the balance of this race car, the attitude of it all. It's looking comfortable for Scott McLaughlin, and this is very similar to 2022 when he started on pole, led majority of the race, and took that first victory here in IndyCar. He just seems to be very much in control right now.
I call it quiet hands. You can just tell he's not death gripping the steering wheel. He's got a relaxed grip. He's letting the car and the mechanics work through the steering. He's not trying to overpower and hold on to the bull. He's sort of rolling with it, staying loose on the streets of St. Pete, and it's working. McLaughlin is fast.
2.6 seconds to the good now over the P2 man, Scott McLaughlin, letting his experience and his pace show. Rosenqvist himself with a decent lead over his teammate Marcus Armstrong. Everything just starting to settle down for these guys as they try to extend the advantage, try to pull out that gap on their rivals before having to take that first fuel stop for Shell. 100% renewable fuel into that 28.5 gallon tank.
And lap 28 now, so for the cars that haven't pitted, like this guy, Felix Rosenqvist, thanks to Sirius XM, we ride on board. Cars getting lighter and lighter. It's a little bit easier to manage over the bumps, but as the tires wear, it starts to slide around at the same time. So that's the thing. You come in, you pit for fuel, you get those soft tires, but the car gets heavy. It becomes super grippy, super physical for the first couple of laps. That's where some of the physical endurance is required to survive to get to lap 100.
So guys, we're at lap 29 now. We had a few laps of caution, so that extends that fuel window obviously a little bit, but we're gonna be pretty close to this first round of stops for all the drivers that started on the hards.
Right here, you got Josef Newgarden with 2, Scott Dixon with 6. These cats know how to be patient and let the race come to them. They know that they will have pit stops coming up, maybe in about, 10 laps or so. They'll be giving feedback to the race team so the engineers can make any adjustments during the pit stop. But they'll also probably want some caution. Right now, Newgarden almost 20 seconds back of his teammate, Team Penske teammate McLaughlin.
Yeah, he's reeled in Callum Eilert a little bit, but he just doesn't seem to have the pace that his teammate does leading up front. But speaking of up front, the number 60 that was running up there is in the pits. He's coming to Jack.
Chris is about to come in. He's literally just hit the marks perfectly. It looks like they're putting on the softer tire. We're going to be really interested if they make a front wing adjustment here. They do not. They send him out. Pretty smooth stop for the number 60 of Felix Rosenqvist.
That is interesting. How long does he dare stay out on those? Will it just be a couple of laps and get rid of them? Will he run as long as he can? We were hearing about 14 laps could be the maximum that you can do on these specifically because he's just put on a full tank of gas.
And this will be great to watch and listen to how quickly do the softs come in. We hear very quickly. Let's just ride aboard for a few corners. Devlin DiFrancesco up ahead.
Scott McLaughlin, your race leader, is making his way into pit lane. Jamie Little standing by. Here's our race leader.
Yes, the new dad having a great weekend so far. Started this race on pole, led every lap until now. He will drive on down into his pit box. You see those softer tires ready to go on. They're very happy with the pace of this number 3. So far, so good for McLaughlin.
Couple of turns on the front wing. McLaughlin makes his way out. Where will he come out in relation to Rosenqvist, who, having pitted earlier with that soft tire, if he can get that fired up, Rosenqvist now coming into turn 1, but McLaughlin is miles ahead.
He had 2 seconds, and it looks like Team Penske on pit lane once again. Kept those 2 seconds, but McLaughlin will be a little bit slower here as he warms specifically the front tires, but it won't take long for him to be back up on the pace.
Yeah, you saw the mechanic there cranking on the front wing. That was adjusting the front wing angle, because sometimes when you switch from the hards to the soft, the handling characteristic of the car can change, so the crew can make a little adjustment there in the pit stop to make the driver happy. And this guy's been happy so far today. Let's see how he manages on this softer set of tires. This is key.
Traditionally, the overcut has worked here. The longer you can stay out, the more pace you have. Kevin Lee, drivers coming to you now in pit lane.
Including Alexander Rossi has moved from the back up to 5th. He's going to another set of the hard compound. The blacks, Santino Ferrucci came in right behind him. He's making this his alternate set. He's on the green softer. Can he make him last long enough?
So there's kind of 2 schools of thought here for the drivers that didn't pit under that first yellow. The first we saw from Felix Rosenqvist. Put those softs on now, get them out of the way, then you can have the preferred hard tire for the rest of the race. Or you can do what Alexander Rossi's just done. He's gone to another set of primaries. My theory is he could run those till right near the end of the race, come in very late for a short stint on those reds, or sorry, on those greens, the soft tires, to try to just minimize the amount of time he's got to spend on.
He'll still have to make another stop to get there, but you're right. Everybody's going to be watching right now Scott McLaughlin's pace on the softer tire. How fast does he go, and for how long? That will determine the rest of the strategy. Jack.
Yeah, I'm down in the 7. Christian's just come in for his stop. He's putting new hard black tires on again. A little bit of a delay for the fuel hose there, but he's heading back down pit lane.
And Marcus Armstrong continues to lead, trying to hang on for as long as he can. Make best use of the fact that he is now low on fuel. The car is light. He can push, get in the fast lap times, and he's doing that down to 102.4s. They're the same lap times that Scott McLaughlin was running before he came in. And if Armstrong can keep pushing at this pace while those around and ahead of him are running now on heavier fuel, this could work out brilliantly for the young New Zealander.
Last lap, Armstrong was 1 second faster than McLaughlin. Question is McLaughlin in traffic, or is he already struggling? I'm looking on our tracker, James, and he's in clean air.
Armstrong in, coming to you, Kevin.
And he stayed out later than several, and he was also told, don't worry about fuel save, go as fast as you can. This is the alternate, the softer set in this stint. Marcus Armstrong's best finish, his only podium, also in a street course last year, and he's away.
That was a little messy, a little messy. Fuel hose was already off, and they were making changes on the wing, delayed Marcus Armstrong getting away. All of that hard work potentially undone as they roll the dice and roll him onto greens.
You saw at the front of the camera there in that last shot. It looked like the crew of the 26 of Colton Herta, who's now inherited the lead, setting up as well. He only had a few laps advantage. There you go. You see the Gamebridge suits ready to receive him as Christian Rasmussen in the top of your screen for ECR pits.
And there at the top, Jacob Abel, the rookie, who was running at the back down in P22, on right on board now with Colton Herta. Does he make the jump now as we come round to complete lap 35? He does. Colton Herta in and on schedule with everybody else who's pitted.
Steering like a forklift there off of turn 14, on the throttle, working the oversteer to adjust the yaw of the race car. Jamie, the young Californian, coming to you.
Yes, the 24-year-old really happy with this race car. Started on the front row. They said they really liked the pace. You saw him making some adjustments inside the race car. They'll go from those primary hard tires and they will put on another set of hard primary tires. Just, oh, they have a problem with the right rear. They can't get it on. The time is ticking.
Jamie.
And he gets it on. Oh my goodness.
Race coming undone for Colton Herta. Jamie, great reporting down there. Sorry for stepping on you. Brilliant stuff. But Colton Herta with the problem on the rear right. All of that hard work now coming undone for him with the delay on the rear right.
And look, we talk about the drivers being race rusty at the top of the show. The same goes for the pit crews. They've not been in the heat of the moment in action since last September in Nashville. Let's take another look at what went wrong for Colton Herta, your front row starter. In the box, fine. They get the right rear tire off, but you just see there's a little bit of a hiccup. It's hung up. It's a bizarre one. It's like it's stuck on that brake guard. Can't get it situated down and away. Good job by the crewman with the wand to not pull that too early and drop the car with only 3 tires on it.
Guys, they would have done 500 practices over the offseason of changing that right rear. 499 probably went fine. And all of a sudden, in the heat of the battle, you have something weird like that, and everything just tightens up in that moment. That felt for Colton Herta like 40 seconds sitting still, even though if it was just 4 seconds extra on the clock.
Josef Newgarden leads the race at the moment and will try to eke this out as long as he possibly can, because when we look at the first round of really meaningful pit stops for the guys who started the race on the primary tire, Rosenqvist was our first pitter. As Newgarden now jumps in, Rosenqvist was your first guy in and has dropped to the back of that pack behind Lundgaard and his teammate Armstrong. Jack standing by for Josef Newgarden's stop.
Yeah, the crew are ready. They're just waiting for him, waving him in now. It's just about to land on his marks, perfect on his marks. All tires off, new black primaries are going on. Also no adjustment. Oh, little bubble there, but heading back down pit road.
Little delay on getting that fuel hose off, a couple of bites of getting that one done. And now, guess who leads the race? The guy who can make impossible strategies work week in, week out, has never won on the streets of St. Petersburg, despite a glittering career that has brought him 6 titles. Your man Scott Dixon in the number 9 PNC Bank Honda leads the way from his teammate Alex Palou.
Watching lap times of Newgarden's teammate Scott McLaughlin out there on that soft tire, still holding strong, James. 102.6 was McLaughlin's last lap. So the soft tires so far hanging in there on performance. We'll be keeping an eye on it as teammates Dixon and Palo come in. Jamie.
Scott Dixon makes the drive down pit road. The 44-year-old 6-time champion. He's had a good race car, started 6th. He pulls in, they'll take off those primary tires. They'll put another set of those hard primary tires on. They hold them, get it full. Good stop for the 9.
Nice stop for the 10 as well. Gets that 100% renewable Shell fuel on board, gets going again. And Newgarden in between the two. So Dixon ahead of Newgarden and Palo behind him. So Dixon takes the advantage in that battle of the champions right in the middle there. 6 for Dixon, 2 for Newgarden, and thus far 3 for Palo. Now this is fascinating, guys, because as things stand, we're back to the order as it was, as Colton Herta has a look up the inside of Alex Palou with his tires up to temperature. That's a lovely move in a difficult place at turn 10.
Have to be opportunistic, though, if you're Colton Herta. If you're going to get back to the front where you know you think you belong, you've got to take high percentage opportunities like that, and you have to know who you're racing. Alex Palou, 3-time champion for a reason. He doesn't put his car in bad situations. Colton Herta knew that and pounced on it.
Pulling back to your race leader, Scott McLaughlin of the Thirsty Threes, the Dex Imaging. And we ride on board with him, taking a move on Jacob Abel.
That puts Jacob Abel, the rookie, a lap down right there.
Oh, possibly a little closer than he would have wanted it to be. But Scott McLaughlin is back to the front, but keep in mind, he is on the softer alternate tire. How long will it last? We're going to find out here on the streets of St. Pete's. Welcome back to the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Scott McLaughlin, your race leader, the 31-year-old New Zealander who took pole position yesterday, leads the way from Christian Lundgaard by a whopping 11.8 seconds. Marcus Armstrong coming to the pit lane. This feels a little bit early, Kevin.
And you only need to get 10 laps on this set of the soft, so he's going to the primaries. They also told him to look at the left rear toe link, so he may have brushed the wall somewhere. They must feel it's okay because he's off and away.
Well, whatever challenges that Marcus Armstrong was feeling with the softer tire, McLaughlin is not ready to wave the white flag on that, but McLaughlin is about 0.6 of a lap slower now than he was at the start.
Damage, they looked at it.
So yeah, so reassuring message from his team there that they looked at the corner, didn't see any damage. But now he's under pressure here.
Connor Daly in the 76, Cos Hollinger as the ECR car of, is that Alexander Rossi, having a little look around the outside. A lovely move though from Connor Daly, and now Scott McLaughlin pulls the pin. He's had enough on those tires and rolls down to take on the primaries.
Now it's a 3-stop race for basically everybody. Jamie, they could only hang on for about 12 laps.
And they talked him through it. He was able to hold on. They pull those green sidewall tires off. They put the primaries on. Another turn to the front wing. Got it done, guys.
Rosenqvist then taking the opposite of the strategy that he did earlier. He was the first guy in from the original group. Now he'll be the last. Lundgaard and Rossi don't need to stop. They're on the prime. Kevin.
Marcus Armstrong feels he's got a problem. They said bring it in if it's broke. So they took a look at it, sent him, but he's still concerned.
Critical outlap here for Scott McLaughlin. You saw him defending against that Prema machine. That's Callum Ilott.
Oh no. Look at Marcus Armstrong.
The wheel is loose. Oh no.
Did he hit a wall, or is it just missing the wheel nut?
Doesn't look like there's any bent suspension on the left corner.
Unless the upright broke.
Yeah, there could be something in there.
If the wheel was not tight, it probably would have been gone by now. Meanwhile, McLaughlin finding tire temperature and settling back in to that leading pace. Felix Rosenqvist now to pit lane, Jack.
Yeah, he literally has just stopped perfectly on his marks. Those soft tires coming off, hard tires going back on. Pretty smooth stuff for the number 60 there. No wing change on his way out. Very nice stop by Meyershank Racing.
So Christian Lundgaard for McLaren now leads the way from Alexander Rossi and David Malukas. Graham Rahal in fourth place. Malukas on the alternate will need to stop as we sit on board the Sirius XM on board for the number 60, Felix Rosenqvist fighting with the wheel.
Watch how hard it is to get tire temperature here.
Overtake here, keep full push.
Now, Colton Herta back in.
How did the rear tires like that came up?
No, Colton, we have a fuel issue. We're going to have to stop short of intended. I'll let you know.
Yeah, copy. Let me know what I can do to help.
Not even changing the tires, just getting fuel. So a problem on the right rear, a problem with the fuel, disaster for the 26 car.
You know what I like about that radio, Will, is 3 years ago, you would have heard Colton Herta screaming on the radio. Now, as a veteran, what does he say? What can I do to help? As Kiffin Simpson looks to make a move. That's a mature Colton Herta who has grown so much in the cockpit. He's a quarterback on his race team, taking charge and keeping everybody calm.
And at the end of the day, it's races like this that define a championship run. When it's not going your way and you don't have the fight for the win, you've got to collect the best possible result that you can. And Kev, the 4 is in.
David Malukas went about 4 laps longer than McLaughlin and Armstrong, so he made the softer alternates last longer. He's done with it. Back out now on the primary harder tires.
And Marcus Armstrong sits on pit road. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere. There was that problem with the left rear. After he had it out on track, they looked at it, said it was good to go, put the tire on. It wasn't. And here he sits now. And after a brilliant race, a brilliant qualifying session yesterday, things starting to come undone for the Meyershank team, which had looked so strong all the way through. Now your leaders, Lundgaard and Rossi, the only 2 drivers who started on the primary tire and changed to the primary tire. They are on schedule.
If this thing stays green, though, they're going to be in a little bit of a hole because they still have to run that soft tire, so they'll need to make 2 stops to make it to the end based on what McLaughlin just demonstrated. If you think you only have 10 or 12 laps, they won't be able to go far enough to make it on the softs before the performance really falls apart.
No, for sure, but they can do that right at the end of the race if they make it to lap 60 for the next stop, then to lap 90, throw them on for 10 laps. We know they can do that. The track will be in better condition. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for these drivers.
3 groups of 3 strategies. It's only going to come together at the end. Don't go anywhere. It's going to get exciting here. Christian Lundgaard and Alexander Rossi are your leading drivers here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Lundberg in the McLaren, Rossi in the ECR. Rossi, of course, who raced for McLaren last season, moving to ECR. Lundgaard moving into that seat. Two familiar faces in very different places leading this race. But, Townsend Bell, are they on the optimum strategy?
Oh, it's a big but, because both of those cars will have to run the softer tire. And Kevin, the softer tire we think is only good for about 10 to 12 laps. That would mean they would have to stop 2 more times to make it to the end unless they try to limp home on the soft compound.
Lundgaard coming over from the RLL camp after 3 seasons there. Took a victory on the street to Toronto a few years back. Really wants to make a mark here on the new team with McLaren, but I do not think this one's going the way they want it to go on with UT Bell. When you think about the stops remaining and you look at the gaps to the cars behind, it's just not really working out, this strategy.
So with that in mind, is it still a battle of 2 groups? One led by Dixon, Newgarden, and Palo are 3 multiple champions within this field today. Or can Scott McLaughlin still do it?
No, McLaughlin's in that group. Scott Dixon, Newgarden, Palo, that group all the way down to McLaughlin need 1 more stop to make it to the end. They've all satisfied the tire requirement. Guys, that orange and blue PNC car is on point to potentially win his first ever Grand Prix of St. Petersburg.
And not only that, he is catching Alexander Rossi ahead. Now, for more on the tire compounds for today's race, why don't we take a look at Tire Talk, sponsored by Firestone.
And that has been the storyline of the weekend. Are the softer tires, the alternates with the green sidewalls, going to last long enough? Made it a little bit easier for some because of that early caution, so they bailed. But the top 2 in this race still need to be able to make it last. They still have to run the alternates at some point. So that's Lundgaard and Rossi. Rossi's strategy, he's hoping it stays green late in the race. He was hoping to run long enough to only need to do 10 laps in the last stint when the track should be the best. So they maybe have an opportunity, but I think you're right, Scott Dixon might be in the catbird seat.
Curse of the commentators, he's never won around this track. Let's not give it to him just yet. Lundgaard still leads from Alexander Rossi. Dixon catching the pair of them.
And look, we've seen pit stop problems already from one of the top organizations. Plus, you've got Josef Newgarden, a 2-time champ. Alex Palou, a 3-time champ right behind you. This thing is still blown wide open. Dixon's sitting in a good spot, but he is not the only guy that's looking pretty at this moment with 55 laps done.
I'll be keeping an eye on that baby blue PPG Chevy Josef Newgarden's driving just behind Dixon. Think about how fast Scott McLaughlin was in the lead. Josef Newgarden's in the exact same equipment, presumably the exact same settings. This guy won the race last year, was penalized post-race down the road, had the win taken away from him for an illegal technical infraction, and now has a chance to make it right today. Jack, what can you tell us about Newgarden?
Earlier in the race, he was reporting some understeer. As the track's rubbering in, he's more and more happy with his race car. They actually haven't made any tire pressure or wing adjustments today, so this is pure track evolution. But Joseph's feeling quite good right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things for the drivers and the engineers to consider coming into a race, is this track, especially because it's a temporary track. You know, it's not a racetrack. This rubber going down only happens once a year. It changes a lot over the course of the Grand Prix, and so what you have to think about is not just the setup you want it to have at the start of the race, but as that track evolves, that balance changes, what you want it to have at the end of the race. You can make some adjustments in the pit lane, like we saw the wing change or the tire pressures like Jack mentioned. The drivers have a couple tools inside the car they can use to adjust the handling, but if Joseph's made no adjustments whatsoever, that means they found that perfect sweet spot compromise on the setup, and it's showing right now. It's working well.
And we talk about that sweet spot. The drivers all want to be on that harder tire now to get through to the end of the race. Some will not have that option. They will have to run the soft still at some point in time. Those drivers, Lundgaard and Rossi, and also Callum Ilott. A word for him as we look down the top 10, has run primary in that brand new Prema car, sits P8 at the moment. A top 10 running at over half distance here. Great job so far for that new team.
Absolutely, especially when you consider between Dixon, Newgarden, and Palo, you're talking about, what, 11 championships with those 3 guys. So to be up with the big boys, impressive, especially given the time off that Callum Ilott had from this championship.
A look at your lap leader, sponsored by NTT. Scott McLaughlin, no surprise there to see him atop that pylon. 38 laps for him. He's led so much of this race, but it may be slipping away from him. Lundgaard leads. Dixon has the advantage, but do not count out Scott McLaughlin, just 8.4 off the lead. 3 completely different strategies, which will all converge within the final 10 laps of the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg.
We think you'll see Lundgaard and Rossi coming to pits in about 10 laps or so. So much more to play out here.
As we take a look at Felix Rosenqvist, hoping to make up for a difficult afternoon. Can McLaughlin get back to the front? Welcome back to the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg on Fox, presented by Pods. It has been quite the race so far here today. It started off with contact on the very open for Foster, Siegel, and Power, taking them out of the race. And what that did was thrust us into a mixture of strategies which are only now starting to play out. All of those who started on the alternate tire were able to get rid of them under caution, giving us 2 groups, and from that group only Lundgaard and Rossi remain on track as they change primary to primary. But now Scott Dixon is catching them, bringing this back into his grasp potentially for a first victory here on the streets of St. Petersburg. We've heard from Louis Foster, we've heard from Nolan Siegel. We haven't heard from Will Power, but we know that he has been declared as well and has been released from the Circuit Medical Center. So all three of them all good after that first lap contact. Lundgaard from Rossi, your leaders, but Dixon catching up.
38 laps to go, as you saw there in the upper left-hand corner. Lap 62 of 100 complete, so these cars can go about 34, 35 laps on fuel, depending on how gentle you are on that loud pedal on the right-hand side. So we're about to get to final pit stops for Rossi and Lundgaard, but they'll probably have to do an extra one if they go to the softs and can't hang on. And it's also Dixon, Newgarden, Palo, sorry James, one more stop to the end.
Yeah, it's also getting to that phase of the race, Townsend, where the physicality really starts to come in. This is a tricky little racetrack, not a lot of room to rest, catch your breath, relax your grip. And as you put to that, go to that last stop, put that last set of fresh tires on, the grip level's really high, the steering wheel gets a little heavy, your fatigue is starting to kick in. This is where the off-season training for these drivers really comes into play.
And for veterans and rookies alike, the first race of the season, you always clinch a little tighter. You hold in the wheel a little too tight on the first 10 laps. You're trying a little bit too hard. You burn so much energy, I always found early in the season. It takes a lot to relax. How do you do that, though, when you're going 180 miles an hour with a championship on the line? It creates high anxiety. But to James's point, at this point of the race, you really started to get into the rhythm and the percussion of repeatability lap after lap.
Christian Lundgaard, the 23-year-old Dane racing for McLaren, making his debut for McLaren here in St. Petersburg, is not turning up to make up the numbers at McLaren. Everybody looking at Pato O'Ward to be the de facto team leader there at McLaren. But Christian Lundgaard, we know, already a race winner in the NTT INDYCAR Series. He does not mess about. He is serious, he is fast, and he is here to play ball. Leads the race, 1.5 seconds from Alexander Rossi, who in that ECR team, who have had that massive investment, that all-new livery with that beautiful, almost Air Force blue and yellow and black, the Java House car there of Alexander Rossi. Big expectations with them, and Rossi now comes into pit lane. Shell 100% renewable fuel, but will it be the prime, or will it be the alternate, Kevin?
They still have to fill that requirement to use the softs with the green sidewall, and this is the alternate stint. The plan was to try to make it the last stint, but they don't want to get trapped into something, and now they are likely have to do an extra stop. They could maybe make it on fuel, especially with a caution, but no one thinks, including the team, that the tires would last long enough. And by the way, that's by design by Firestone. They want a big difference between the two compounds.
I think you got to try. You got to just go out here if you're Alexander Rossi. Try to not slide the car too much, but you never know. You get a bunch of yellow, you might be able to hang on to the end on the softer tire, but one more pit stop really takes you out of it at this point.
Yeah, but this team had to roll the dice from where they were starting. You're right, though. A lot of yellow right here could slowly play into the hands of this strategy. It's a little bit schadenfreude, and I hope that something bad happens to someone else and it's going to benefit your race. But that's kind of the mentality they have to have at this point.
And as you say, you look back through the history of this circuit. We're now running lap 66 of 100 as the body tightens, as it tires, as the mental fatigue sticks in for these drivers who have not been racing at these speeds, at these close quarters for almost 6 months. A yellow is almost inevitable at some point. It's just when it falls.
You just never know here at St. Pete. I mean, little accidents can happen. Like I said, as the body starts to fade, the mind starts to fall behind.
And here what happens is you get desperate battles deep in the field, right? Somebody like Pato O'Ward that's running 18th, he's like, dude, what do I care? I'm gonna make every move as big as possible and try to get myself into the top 15. 18th isn't gonna cut it for Pato O'Ward today. For Alexander Rossi, he just continues to circulate on that soft tire and try to feel things out, see if he can stretch it and make it work where others haven't today.
Lundgaard able to extend his stint by a couple of laps, doing a wonderful job still out front, but Scott Dixon now starting to reel him in as well. And guys, it is astonishing that Scott Dixon, in his more than 20 years in this championship, having visited this track so many times, has still not won around these streets when he's won pretty much everywhere that this championship has ever visited.
Yeah, he's good. I don't know that it bothers him that much, but he would love to have a St. Pete win. He's got, as Will said, everything else, the 500, winning on every type of circuit and doing so for such a long period. That's the thing about Scott Dixon, winning consistently across all 22 years of his career.
Yeah, 20 consecutive years with a race win. I mean, an incredible record that he has. And he's just going to keep extending it. Doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
And I've got to say, he looks possibly more physically fit than I've seen in a while. He turned up after preseason. Dude looks amazing. He's in his mid-40s and he's like a god. Just looks incredible.
Yeah, you can see there in the graphic how close he's come here at St. Pete, how many times. And I'm with you, Will. I mean, I used to train every day with this guy when I was in IndyCar, and he is an absolute beast in the gym, as dedicated to his fitness as he is to his driving. And yeah, it's such an advantage when you're at this stage of a race, especially. And he's even closing down on Lundqvist there, or sorry, Lundgaard.
How does that feel when you're leading the race and the driver that you see in your mirrors around a street is that famous orange and blue car of Scott Dixon, and you know you have one of the greatest of all time in this sport hounding you for the lead?
Yeah, you don't love it. You don't love it. It's not what you're looking for.
But you also know Christian Lundgaard, a very smart driver at just 23 years old. He's already an IndyCar winner. His team will be giving him the information to tell him where he stands. Let's listen.
Christian, we're going to go to alts when we get in here. We need to do everything we can to make them last. Don't slip them in turn 4. Don't slide them. Bring them in easy.
So they're going the alternate approach there, not going hard and making it last 10 laps and coming in. They're going to try to stretch these things 30 laps to the end. That is significantly further than anyone else has. And as a driver, you do that by essentially driving slow. You have to underdrive the car to make that work. But even still, I mean, Townsend, that's twice as long as we've seen anybody run them.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do it? You just try to take slip out of your driving style. That's not pushing the front end where the tire's sliding at all. Not spinning up the rears with that 700 horsepower. Easier said than done, though. A racing driver is all about walking on that tightrope, dancing on the tip of the needle, if you will, of adhesion. And today, Christian Lundgaard and Rossi, they're going to need to take it down a notch to make those tires last to the end.
Quite the mission as we sat on board for the mission car there.
You know, just behind this group here, Kyle Kirkwood running right now in P5. It's effectively a P4 as we see the 7 now dive into the pits. That is the leader, and he is going to roll the dice in a big way, going to these soft tires and try to make them last for a full 30 laps. Jack, he is heading down your way for a crucial stop here late in the race.
Yeah, and they've said they really want to try and make these last, bring them in easy. He's just hit the marks perfect. The old tires are coming off. The new tires are going on, the softer tire, the slight bubble, full fuel, off he goes.
31 laps if he's going to do it to make these tires last at the conclusion of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Christian Lundgaard, who has done such a phenomenal job today to lead this race, exits ahead critically of his rival Alexander Rossi. All of these strategies starting to come together, but it's Scott Dixon, one of the greatest to ever do it, who leads this race. Welcome back to the streets of St. Petersburg, where the stops are coming thick and fast. Your leader, Scott Dixon, still out on track, but Josef Newgarden and Alex Palou both pitted while we were in break, guys, and it got pretty close between Newgarden and Lundgaard. Here it is.
This was Josef Newgarden's final stop of the day. Fuel goes in, 4 tires. He blends out just ahead of Lundgaard and Rossi, who are on the softer tire, but we think they have to make one more stop or hang on to slower pace.
Rossi's already actually come in, got off of those softs. He's back on the hards, but Lundgaard, we heard that radio transmission from Brian Barnhart. He's going to try to make these things last to the end. Jamie.
Scott Dixon's led 5 laps today. He pits from the lead. I just asked Chip Ganassi, team owner, any changes? He said no. Dixon's happy. 4 tires, primaries go back on, guys.
And who moves into the lead? Scott McLaughlin once again. Let's look at the blend. There goes Palo. Scott Dixon out between him and Josef Newgarden.
Huge. Palo got ahead of his teammate by making the undercut. That could be the race-winning move for Alex Palou ahead of Scott Dixon. That could put Scott Dixon into second again.
Unreal. This is why this guy's got 3 championships in the last 4 years. Normally, this is an overcut race where running longer is advantageous. He pit first, got up to speed quickly. That outlap was so impressive, and this could potentially be the move to win the race. Now Newgarden is sniffing blood in the water. He wants to get by Dixon.
Dixon under pressure from Josef Newgarden, and the pit stop still coming thick and fast. Your race leader, Scott McLaughlin, on pit road. Rosenquist won't be far behind him, but this has emerged now as the battle for the win. It's Palo who will be your de facto leader from Dixon and Newgarden, and there is McLaughlin. Jamie.
Scott McLaughlin, they made a couple changes in the 2 pit stops prior. No changes here. A little slow on the left front for the 3.
Guys, Josef Newgarden just got by Scott Dixon in turn 1. They were side by side, almost banging wheels. Newgarden pounced as Dixon was trying to find tire temperature.
That's what he had to do. Those outlaps are so tough, Townsend. You know it, trying to get heat in the tires. Let's take a look at it on the push to pass. Late on the brakes. I mean, that's one of the best in the business to do it. And good hard racing. Josef pushed him a little wide there, but that was good, fair stuff. Let's take a look from the onboard of the number 2 machine. Get the driver's eye view of it all.
What'd you call that, Townsend? Little hip check or just a little hello?
I don't even remember what I said. I was that fired up for the moment. Meanwhile, Alex Palou in the catbird seat. Rosenquist still leads, but he last pitted almost 30 laps ago, so he will have to come and make his final stop. But Alex Palou, what a magic job to do the undercut. His team manager, Mike Hall, told me that the undercut they thought was going to be the advantage as Rosenquist comes in that Shinedown car. The Meyer-Shank team goes to work. Everything looks smooth. Fuel and tires like clockwork, but he'll fall way back in the order.
What an incredible way this race is playing out. 25 laps to go here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Alex Palou, your new race leader, the reigning champion by 4.5 seconds from Josef Newgarden. Scott Dixon behind him, and all that fighting between Newgarden and Dixon has dropped them so far back from this man who has been so perfect over recent years.
It's like he's caged whatever pace he's been kind of hiding or protecting or being patient with, and now he's unleashing it. Are you kidding me? 5 seconds over Newgarden and Dixon in the last couple of laps. This is a masterclass from the 3-time champ.
From P8 on the grid. Palo leads the race, so why don't we take a look at the Pennzoil moment of the race. This is it. The moment at the blend line that he takes the advantage and ultimately the move that would hand him the lead.
And Dixon would have been on that push to pass, just itching to hit the button, get the speed limiter off and attack, and seen his teammate coming. And this is something Dixon has seen too much of over the last 4 seasons, and he is getting sick of it.
Alex Palou then, your race leader for Ganassi in the DHL Honda from Josef Newgarden and Scott Dixon. We are into the final 25 laps on the streets of St. Pete. Let's take a look then at the big move, sponsored by Pods.
Here it is, Josef Newgarden up the inside of the 6-time champion, Scott Dixon. Newgarden throwing muscle and a little shade to Dixon. There was almost contact. Two of the most experienced drivers in the field, though.
And interesting from Dixon to stay on the racing line, not to try to defend. It just gives Josef the opportunity to open those hands, widen it up, and take the place.
Got to be soul-crushing, though, for Scott Dixon. So many times second in this race. It looked for a while like he was going to be the man today. He now runs third. A podium, not bad, but winning at St. Pete would be pretty awesome for the driver of the 9. Still 20 laps to go here at St. Pete. But it's Alex Palou absolutely putting on a lesson for the field on precision, pace, patience, all of the attributes of a champion.
And you know what? There's one guy that's got a lot of fight left in him today. That's going to be Scott McLaughlin. He won't want to leave here with anything less than than a podium. He had such a phenomenal day yesterday. Wanted to win this from the pole. Currently a couple of seconds behind his countryman Scott Dixon. Scott McLaughlin trying to pull that in as we ride on board with the Chili's Honda of Kyle Kirkwood, who's managed to find his way into 5th.
Yeah, and that's a great result right now. They're running solidly in the top 5. This is a guy who excels on the street circuits. And we saw pace in his first year with Andretti. We saw consistency in his second year. Year 3 for Kyle Kirkwood is all about combining those two things. And a top 5 to start the season. Chili's on board that race car. That's a great way to kick things off.
It is, and I was teammates with Kyle Kirkwood about 3 weeks ago at the 24 Hours of Daytona. And I'll tell you, for a young guy, he has learned so much about the nuances of car setup, the nuances of massaging the mechanical systems on the race car with the engineers. This guy is totally locked in. He uses every tool in the toolbox to make it work on race day. Super impressive in his 4th season now.
Teammates with Colin Herta, second in the championship last year. Marcus Ericsson, the other driver on that team, a 500 champion. So this is a driver that really wants to assert himself within that team, bring himself to that level, be considered a championship contender, and this is a great start.
It's top 10 with 19 to go is Alex Palou from Josef Newgarden. Scott Dixon runs 3rd. Then it's Scott McLaughlin and Kyle Kirkwood. How about this? Pato O'Ward, P6, having had a horrible day, although I'm sure he may have to stop.
He will.
Perhaps one more time to drop him down the order, but runs P6, perhaps in a little vision of what might have been. Marcus Ericsson, who was so fast earlier this weekend, runs 7th. Rosenquist, who was up in the top 3 for so much of the day, is 8th. Rinus VK, impressive as always in the Dale Coyne entry, P9. And then Lundgaard currently sits 10th, having got off those alternate tires and back onto the primes in the number 7 McLaren.
Make myself clear, it'll be 16 laps on your start set of primes.
The Reds, how long has it been?
Reds are not lasting 16 laps.
Pato O'Ward asking, can we go to the soft tire? And his strategist, Nick Snyder, they're telling him, hey, they're not going to last that long. So Pato O'Ward, frustrating day. You can hear it on the radio and you can see it in his hands, where thanks to Aero for those onboard moments. Big oversteer coming onto the back straightaway.
Yeah, it's a frustrated guy, and understandably so. It's kind of really gone wrong for this team from the start of this race, but you still got to stay calm behind the wheel. You got to just salvage what you can. This is not a day to remember for Pato and the 5 team, but a day that is shaping up quite nicely for Alex Palou. It is incredible. I mean, the precision that he has, the execution that he has. He qualified 8th and has put himself up in contention to win this race. Just so impressive.
He is simply phenomenal. Our 3-time champion, Alex Palou, as we ride on board on the Goodhart on board of the number 77 Stingray Rob. Coming up next on Fox, the NASCAR Cup Series is in Texas, where their drivers take on the twists and turns of the phenomenal circuit of the Americas. Pre-race coverage begins next with the green flag at 3:30, only on Fox. And here's a couple of NHRA celebs doing the rounds in the paddock down there. Austin Prock and Tron Brown. You can see them in action pretty soon, actually. I think Sunday, March 9th, the Gator Nationals final, 7 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Back here to the streets of St. Petersburg, Alex Palou still leads the way by 4 seconds now from Josef Newgarden. Scott Dixon a second behind Newgarden and McLaughlin at 9.8. Kirkwood down there in 5th. And guys, 13 to go. Can anyone do anything about Alex Palou?
Well, not in these laps so far. If you look at the race summary, thanks to pods, you had 3 cars out on the opening lap. Colton Herta had trouble on both of his pit stops, and Palo made this work under green flag pit stop conditions to get to the front. The only thing that could go wrong, James, would be a lap car that he can't get by. That could be Stingray Robb, who sits in the number 77 there just ahead. Stingray's having a decent race. His pace is okay. The question is, how hard will Alex Palou push to get by? How quickly can Josef Newgarden catch up?
Well, yeah, I mean, getting these pictures from Goodhart, looking back at your leader, Alex Palou, and as you mentioned earlier, you do not have to secede to the leader. You can fight to stay on that lead lap, and that gap between Palou and Newgarden, we saw it up around 5 seconds. It's down to 3.3. So how hard is he going to push to get by Stingray? He's probably going to give Josef about another second, and once he's down to the 2s, that's when you have to force the issue and try to get around Stingray.
Watch the number right here, down to 3.1. That was 0.3 of a second that Palou lost to Newgarden just in 3 corners. Guys, that gap is dropping fast. Newgarden's got his head down. He's sending it.
3/4 of a second in 1 lap. Newgarden perhaps sensing that now is the time. Down to 2.7 seconds. We look back from Stingray Robb's camera. Wait until you see that blue Penske coming up behind Alex Palou in the DHL Honda.
And the reason it's so much harder to keep your lap time up when you're behind another car, these cars, they're very reliant on the aerodynamics. Those big wings generate a lot of downforce. That gives you grip. And when you're behind another car, we call it dirty air. The air does not flow over the car smooth and clean. You lose downforce, you lose grip, and that's why they're just not able to keep up that pace. And it is 2.1 seconds now. You can see it on your screen.
Boys,
we have a race on our hands.
It is on. It is on. Newgarden is going to pull this thing down under 2 seconds. Palou has got to make his move and make it soon.
Josef Newgarden had the fastest lap on the racetrack that last lap. The number 2 is almost in the draft of Palou. This thing going to tighten up real fast.
Not just the fastest on the track that lap, he was the fast. That was the fastest lap of the race. The Josef Newgarden machine is flying and is reeling in Alex Palou. Now again, catching him is one thing. Passing him is a very, very different thing.
But when he's got 1.2 seconds of an advantage as he had last time round, he could make that move and make it stick. Palou has got to find a way past Stingray Robb. Newgarden pulling him in, inch by inch, corner by corner.
Perfect situation for Josef Newgarden. Not only is there Stingray Robb, but there's also rookie Robert Schwartzman making his first ever IndyCar race. That's the next car up ahead from Stingray Robb. So for Newgarden, you got Palou driving into the weeds right now in that those slower cars are going to make it very difficult for Palou to regain the pace that he showed just 5 laps ago.
Palou has seen the lead shrink from 5 seconds down to just over 1 second. This is when drivers can get unforced errors brought upon them. I mean, you're stressed out, you've lost this huge gap, you're frustrated, stuck behind a car that should be a lap down to you. This is where you've got to keep your cool and not make mistakes. Your tires are wearing, there's lots of dirty marbles and grit off track as the team owner Chip Ganassi stressfully looking on, and that's Tim Cindric. He's on the radio to the number 2 of Newgarden. These two have been battling for a long, long time, over a lot of years, guys.
And I'm sure Tim Cindric would have given very explicit instructions to Newgarden 3 laps ago. Push now, qualifying laps, use push to pass, use every bit of power and technique you have. It's a straight up fight to the end now, guys, with 9 to go.
The furrowed brow of Chip Ganassi as he watches the leading car of 10.
Let's hear from him.
10 laps to go. Gap behind is 1.5. He has 40 seconds of overtake remaining.
It's not 1.5 any longer. It's 3/4 of a second. It's 0.7 and dropping. Newgarden has Palo in his sights with 9 laps to go. The PPG Chevy is marching on here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Newgarden cutting it down corner by corner, reeling in the 3-time champion, desperate to take the win of the opening round of the 2025 season.
Both drivers have about 50 extra horsepower remaining. If they use the button, the push to pass button, you get 150 seconds for the race. Right now, Palo has 49, Newgarden 40. Pretty close there. This is going to be a straight up sprint to the end.
Palo had a bigger gap on the push to pass a little bit earlier, but he's been burning it trying to get around Stingray Robb. That's just not what you want to do. You don't want to have to waste it trying to get around a lap car, but he is so exposed now to Newgarden behind.
And Stingray Robb is just fast enough to make this a headache for Palo. Every time he gets close, he's losing the downforce on the front wing. You talked about the dirty air, and that creates understeer for Josef Newgarden. Thanks to PPG, let's ride on board for a few corners. What is he dealing with in the cockpit?
Looks pretty hooked up, but again, now that he's caught up to the back of the 10, he's in that dirty air as well. He's only 2 car lengths behind him.
He's closer than he's ever been. It's under half a second through the final corner and down the start-finish stretch. Josef Newgarden trying to stay with Alex Palou, who's just able to stretch his legs enough to bring enough of a gap that Newgarden cannot just yet get a sniff.
Well, guess who's back into the picture?
Would that be Scott Dixon?
Indeed it would. All of this sort of congestion with Stingray Robb has allowed the number 9 to now enter the fight. We had sort of ridden off maybe Scott Dixon for a chance to win it. Always a dangerous mistake in IndyCar.
Never, ever count out the Iceman. This guy has done it in every possible way when it comes to taking victories away from other drivers. Oh, was that a little bit of a brush?
Maybe they bought him, or maybe Newgarden just got into the fence, but I think he might have touched the floor there. But it looked dicey.
Didn't like to see smoke coming off the back of a car fighting for the win this late in the race. And if you're Newgarden, you're salivating. You just can't believe your luck that Stingray was in front and has been able to keep Palo behind him. But now you're in that dirty air.
He's got 45 on his. He's got 49 behind him.
And they're coming up to an almighty queue of cars ahead of them. That of Schwartzman and Eilert and Kiffin Simpson ahead. Stingray Robb doing a nice, tidy job of things at the moment. Doesn't have to let Alex Palou through the gap now. Less than 7/10 for the entirety of the lap. Think about these 3 drivers. Think about what each of them has achieved. Alex Palou, a 3-time champion. Josef Newgarden, a 2-time champion. Scott Dixon, a 6-time champion. Between the 3 of them, 100 NTT INDYCAR Series wins. Which one of them will make it 101? It's anyone's race.
And after all the work and all the hype, and all of the potential, it's Penske versus Ganassi once again to start the season right here. The 2 best teams in the sport, undeniably, as Alex Palou looks for some slipstream, looks for the perfect run to try to get by Stingray Robb. He might just send it and go for it right here.
He does, makes the move up onto the inside. Alex Palou gets past Stingray Robb. Finally, now Newgarden has to follow suit if he wants to have any chance of contesting for this win.
And it'll be interesting to see if manufacturer politics come into play here.
Oh, it does.
It does.
Gets out the way.
Stingray Robb powered by Chevy, as is Newgarden, a Honda in the Ganassi cars of Palo and Dixon. That was some blatant interference.
Well, I don't know. He's let Dixon go through as well. So
they're not fighting for third. They care about the win.
Well, also, once you're a lap down, then all of a sudden it's a slightly different situation for Stingray Rob once the leader goes by. But
it was the gentlemanly thing to do once Palo got by.
He did it right. He did it clean. It was straight up. It was professional. Now, clean air for Alex Palou up front. It's Newgarden's turn now to try to hang on. It won't be as easy.
Can Palou stretch his legs? Can Newgarden go with him? And whether Palou stretches his legs or not, just look at the cars ahead of him.
So 5 to go, but Robert Schwartzman about a second slower than what Palo and Newgarden were doing by themselves earlier. So this thing far from over. Lap traffic is still going to matter here in about another lap.
Robert Schwartzman coming from a part of the world where, you know what, you're used to letting the leaders through. This will be strange territory for Robert Schwartzman to not let the leader come through if he doesn't have to, but with just 4 laps to go, this is the scenario that we have. Alex Palou still leading by less than a second from Josef Newgarden. Scott Dixon in the hunt as well. Our top three champions.
Update on push to pass. Palou 27 seconds left, Newgarden 29. They are using the button very similarly at this point.
Dixon 44 still in that fray as well. And Josef so motivated to try to pull off a win here. Robbed of the victory last year after a disqualification. Started on pole, crossed the line first, but classified last. He desperately wants to try to reclaim that trophy that he lost last year.
But you see 4 cars now up ahead of Palou. It's not like the Stingray Rob situation now. Those 4 cars, Connor Daly, Kiffin Simpson, Callum Island, and Robert Schwartzman, they are battling for what would be 17th position. And you make points all the way down through the field. So this is a slightly different situation. I don't think anybody's going to just pull over at this point.
No, not with 3 to go. The car's running that close. As you say, these are all for position. They have the right to race. They're running their own program. The fact the leader's up behind them, that's his problem, not theirs. You can see how many positions have been gained since the race start for your running order. 7 up for Palou, 8 up for Newgarden. McLaughlin down 3. We saw him obviously start up on the pole. Went a slightly different tire strategy than the cars that are running ahead of him. He's essentially first on his program, but it's going to be not quite enough for a podium today, it looks like.
As we hurtle down the start-finish stretch one more time, Palou leads by just over a second from Josef Newgarden, but which of them will take the auto parts, the advanced auto parts checkered flag here on the streets of St. Pete?
Under 4 miles to go, guys.
So if you're Alex Palou, it's all about risk management right now. You check your mirrors. You know you've got that 1 second gap on Newgarden. You also know he would love nothing more than to walk out of here as the winner. So for Palou, you're managing the gap to the car that's slower in front. You're trying to focus on keeping that bubble of air behind you. If Newgarden closes, you step it up a little bit. You only need to go as fast as you need to just stay ahead.
Dixie closing in on Newgarden. Pushed it past 23 Palou, 29 for Newgarden, 41 still for Dixie. And he's right there on the back of that number 2.
What happened to Newgarden there, Will? All of a sudden the gap has opened up. He's starting to slide around. I think Newgarden's losing the handle on his balance.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's what it looks like, as you say, the car sliding around as we have white flag. Last lap of the race here in St. Petersburg. Palo now with over a second advantage from Josef Newgarden, who is falling back into the clutches of Scott Dixon. And guys, what a drive it has been from Alex Palou today, and from that DHL Honda and the whole Ganassi crew, overcoming so many difficulties earlier in the weekend.
And look, he's got a little bit of breathing room right now to Newgarden. He can't relax, certainly, but with only a handful of corners to go, only 1 real passing opportunity, Newgarden nowhere close enough to make it happen. But Dixon, he is trying to line something up here. This isn't over for second.
Oh,
so close.
Here he comes, up and on the inside of Josef Newgarden. That's P2 for the 6-time champion. A great move from Scott Dixon to take second place. But Alex Palou, your reigning champion, the man they all need to beat, lays down a marker here on the streets of St. Pete. Alex Palou wins the opening round of the 2025 IndyCar season as Newgarden seemingly coasting to the line and apparently out of fuel.
Looks like Newgarden just made it there.
And Alex Palou takes the applause of the crowd here as Ganassi celebrate, and one man will be extremely happy, and he is with Jamie Little.
And that would be team owner Chip Ganassi. What can you say about your driver, Alex Palou, in that drive?
I'll tell you what, it was a crazy race. I mean, the pit strategies going on there, and, you know, all the work they had to do coming back from like 12th or 13th. At one point, they were 30 seconds back. What a great race. Unbelievable.
Congratulations, Chip.
Thank you.
Chip's right, it was a great race. Thank you, Jamie, for going to speak to him. Alex Palou, you just can never write him off. He's never qualified well here, guys, but boy, does he race well. His 12th career victory here in the NTT INDYCAR Series, our three-time and reigning champion. As we said, the guy everyone needed to beat and the one man that no one was able to better today.
It was just textbook Palo. I mean, he's really learned a lot from Scott Dixon. This is the kind of thing we used to see out of Scott all the time that led him to all those championships. And shout out to Scott making that move happen on the last lap, forced Josef to burn a little bit more fuel and got the position.
The way Palo challenges races is like open heart surgery. I use the analogy of the surgeon with him. It is so precise, it's methodical. Every step is thought out, it's considered, it's never emotional. It's never over the top. You just don't see big mistakes, big slides, big abusive moments from the cockpit from Alex Palou. It's calm, it's under control, and it is fiercely determined.
And you almost don't even realize he's in contention for the win until that final stint. He is so good at playing that final third of the race. He's there, you know he's in the race, but you didn't really think that he was the one that was going to take the lead on that last set of stops. He just sneaks up on it. It's so impressive.
First time since 2021 that this man has won the curtain raiser of the season. And I tell you folks, the first 1-2 for Ganassi since 2023 in Mid-Ohio.
I mean, this thing wasn't terribly compelling through the middle portions of the race, but the rear of the field, Stingray Robb. And again, a lot of credit to Stingray Robb. I mean, he's racing, trying to stay on the lead lap because you never know what can happen with a caution. But I will say this, once Palo was able to clear him, he really did the gentlemanly thing and let Dixon and Newgarden chase after him.
Yeah, right. He let Newgarden by easily. Dixon held up a little bit, but it didn't really matter. Dixon.
And there he is.
You know, he still got back to second place. So outstanding. Yeah, that's what he was just doing what he was supposed to do. He was staying on, trying to stay on the lead lap, and he did that. But right till the end.
I think Nick Yeoman hit the nail on the head. You know, you
see the celebration then down in victory lane for Alex Palou and the Ganassi team. DHL Honda number 10 crew.
Yes.
All the work over the winter, a brilliant job from them all and picking up where they left off last season. Very much the team, the driver to beat. And Jamie Little, I know, is down there and we'll be getting a word with our man in just a few seconds. But look at the joy on his face and barely a bead of sweat on his head. That is your champion. That is your race winner. That is Alex Palou. Jamie Little down there with him now.
Yes, and Alex Palou, hugs all around by his team. You told me yesterday you just couldn't put the pieces together in qualifying. How did you put the pieces together today and hold off Newgarden like you did for that last run?
Yeah, what an amazing job by everyone at Chip Ganassi Racing, HRC, DHL, and everybody at the 10 car. They gave me everything I needed this weekend to win. I told you yesterday that we had a really fast car, so was looking forward to the race. Our strategy changed a lot during that first yellow, but so glad that we got that number 10 victory lane. It's been 138 days since Nashville, and been dreaming about this every single night.
But who's counting? Let's talk about the moment that you got in front of your teammate and how heads up you were. Was that the pivotal moment for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he got trapped in traffic a little bit. That's why I guess the 10th stand decided to pit a little bit early. We had a really clean outlap, could run fast, and then just open a gap from there.
How about this? You get your first win at St. Petersburg and you kick off the season with a win. What does this do for you and your team moving forward?
It's huge. It's huge. I'm super happy. Honestly, we've been working really, really hard, but it's been a place that we struggled a lot in the past, especially me personally. So to start with a win in 2025 season, it's amazing.
Alex Palou wins at St. Pete.
Certainly did. Great drive, guys. What has everybody got to do now as you enter a new season? And all winter long, everybody will have been looking at Alex Palou thinking, what can we do? How can we train harder? How can we learn more? How can we turn up more prepared than this guy? And he turns up with his biggest fan and just does what he does best. Wins on the streets of St. Pete to start the year off perfectly. That's a beautiful moment.
It is. Beautiful daughter, Lucia.
Did a good job by sticking to it.
I feel like she's been in more victory lanes in IndyCar than most drivers have.
Deservedly so. Her dad, unbeatable, unstoppable. Alex Palou, your winner on the streets of St. Pete. This, the moment pretty much that sealed it. Getting ahead of Scott Dixon at the blend line, crossing the checkers, taking the win. Time to take a look at the Advanced Auto Parts checkered flag moment here on the streets of St. Pete. Alex Palou, your race winner, and a deserved one at that. We thank Advanced Auto Parts for that checkered flag moment. That was the scene as he crossed the line. This, the scene now in victory lane. And what a moment for these guys. All of the work coming into this season. The guy who came home in second place.
Wait a second, is Chip Ganassi dancing?
I believe he is.
Is that what we're calling it? He's giving it a whirl. Hey, you deserve it, buddy. You got a reason to celebrate. Get after it.
Let's hear from your P2 man, Scott Dixon.
And for the fifth time here at St. Pete, and it's a 1-2 for Chip Ganassi Racing. You got an extra spot at the end, but I'm sure you're thinking, what could have been? What were you dealing with that really impacted your race? Yeah, that was frustrating. We had no radio, so, you know, kind of just flying blind out there. And ultimately, I think they were trying to call me in because in that last lap we had before we pitted, there was just so much traffic and we lost 2 or 3 seconds, and that's where, you know, the 10 car got us. So definitely frustrating. I think we had the speed, we had a great car. You know, I think the pit stops are fantastic. Just would have been nice to have a radio so I could kind of know what was going on out there. But kudos to the 10 car and congrats to Chip and everybody on the team, the PNC Bank number 9. You know, Honda did a fantastic job there, especially with fuel mileage. So yeah, frustrated, man. I thought we really had that one and we came up short. What is that like to have no communication with the pit for an entire race?
You're out there by yourself, of course, but then when there's no radio to talk to, you know, even fuel mileage, you're not sure if you're getting the mileage you need to make it to the next window. You know, what's happening even with spotters or anything like that. So it is, it's definitely tough to run a full strategy and a full race like that to make sure, you know, you're kind of running off just a fuel light to see that, you know, you're going to get into the pits, but ultimately it costs us the race.
Essentially, Scott Dixon did this strategy on his own. Seems pretty impressive to finish second. Now to Jack Harvey.
Yeah, I'm here with third place finisher Josef Newgarden. You started 10th, you finished third. That's a great race for you and your team. How did you guys manage to get there?
Yeah, it was a great race by the two team. You know, a couple hiccups, but this team fought really hard. You know, it starts with a really great car. We've had a good car all weekend. I think could have qualified higher than 10th. Yeah, I said that yesterday, and I felt like our car today was certainly capable of winning. Just didn't quite get there for, you know, a couple reasons. The pit cycles, obviously, we needed to go longer, and then we had a shift at the end that we didn't realize, so kind of had to give up that second place. But it was a great fight from our team. This is a good start for us. I mean, look, we're on the podium. We got some points. We'd like to keep these points on the board and then have a good, solid year. It's a long season. You got to go all the way. And I'm happy to be back with this team. Happy to see the energy here to start the year in IndyCar. You know, everything's very positive right now. So thank you to Team Chevy. Sorry we couldn't get the win. And obviously PPG's been here with us, backing us. Always loved driving this PPG car. Normally it's a little more lucky, but we had a bunch of people here supporting. And we'll just got to get ready to go to the next one.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
And you know, you can see the disappointment in both of their faces because both of them felt, and I think rightfully so, that they both had a shot at victory today.
Yeah, hearing Scott Dixon not having a radio, all I can say is, wow. I get the frustration. Phenomenal to still compete, be in the mix, get through traffic without a spotter. Are you kidding me? And to still finish second. That's what Dixie does.
Incredible performance from him, from his teammate, from the whole organization. What a great way to kick off the season here in St. Pete. Heck of a first start of the season.
Incredible strategy, a crazy race, 3 champions, your top 3 drivers, and your reigning champion running home as race winner. Next on Fox, it's NASCAR Race Day live from COTA, Austin, Texas. Don't go anywhere, it's going to be a great race. Thanks so much for tuning in.